Okay, recording has started. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. I hope you're all well. Okay, so I'm going to put my little timer on because some of you may remember from earlier last year, this year, whenever 7 months ago. I only remember that because my little grandson. I'm a preacher too, and so that can be long-winded. So I'm so grateful to be able to be with you all, even if it's through Zoom. I wish I could be there and like touch you and lay hands on you and give hugs. And I am excited to be with you today. I have a couple of things I want to say first before I kind of get into the meat of this. And that is, this is a hard topic, right? This is a hard topic for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And so I want to just right up front, right out of the gate, acknowledge that this is not always the easiest conversation to have, for myself included. 2020 has been the most unusual year for all of us for a lot of different reasons. And so as parents, as mothers, we want to be able to love on our kids and teach them and to have them walk uprightly, right? You know, the Bible tells us that if we train them up the way they're supposed to go, they won't depart from that. And so I think it's very impressive to have this group put together and to walk through some kind of difficult terrain. And so I just want to thank all of these awesome coordinators for inviting me again. It is, man, it's a blessing. And I don't take it lightly. So I want to start with just a couple of definitions for you. And I have notes at the bottom of my screen, so I'm not looking directly at y'all. I'm so sorry, but I'm trying to read. I got these old lady eyes, so I'm trying to balance it all at one time. Okay, so a couple of definitions for you. And the first one is anti-racism. So according to Dr. Robert Patterson, he's a professor of African American Studies at Georgetown University, anti-racism is an active and conscious effort to work against multidimensional aspects of racism. So I wanted to put that one out there. So notice that word active and action that comes through there. And then the next word is, or phrase is implicit bias. So implicit bias is an attitude or attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner, both favorable and unfavorable. And the next definition I want to give you all is blind spot. So a blind spot is to assume that others see what you see, feel, and think. Your blind spots cause you to fail to recognize that emotions such as fear and distrust change how you and others interpret and talk about reality. You think you understand and remember what others say, when you really only remember what you think about what they say. And then lastly, I'm going to give you this phrase, and it's a phrase some of you may have even said or heard before, and I'm gonna challenge that a little bit today. And that phrase is, I don't see color. So when we utilize that phrase, I don't see color, a Black person, a brown person, any person of color, that translates to them as, I don't see you. So using that terminology is, I don't see, it's well-intentioned. It absolutely is well-intentioned. However, the interpretation of that, or the perception that other people receive that don't look like, the vast majority of you, I can't see everybody's face on the screen. I don't want to make assumptions. It really just means that I don't see you. And so it's very important, especially with our children, that our children feel seen, that they feel heard, and that they feel valued. And I'm gonna kind of give you some words that I pray are not offensive, but just to kind of make it a little easier as we go through our time here. So some working terms the word Black, so those who hail from the continent of the African diaspora, so it's just the disbursement of folks from Africa across the world. White, those of European descent. Brown, those from Latin countries. I struggled with this next word and I couldn't get a friend of mine to help me with it. So if it offends anyone, just let me know and I won't use it. And the word is yellow, and that would be my reference to East Asian brothers and sisters. And then lastly, South Asian, and that's those that hail from Indian, Pakistani, or Afghan descent. I'm kind of juiced that I'd struggled with that, because that just means that there's so many different people in the world. So I'm kind of excited about that I had to struggle to find some terms. So I'll start by reading a little bit out of a book. I'll tell you what the book is. I'll give you the title in just a moment, but I've been reading it and this struck me because it's my experience, and it's probably the experience of a lot of children that hail from any of those categories I just mentioned. So allow me to read it for you. Then there was a time at a local bank. When I arrived, I noticed there were lots of people in line waiting to see a teller. There was a Black mother in the bank. Sorry, my page. 3 small children. The children were standing close to their mother, so close in fact that they were actually holding onto her legs. Occasionally, one of the children would become curious about something or someone in the bank and attempt to explore the object or person. However, any effort to leave the mother's side resulted in a sharp verbal chastisement and a snap of her fingers, admonishing the child to immediately get back to her side. In the same line toward the back, there was another mother standing in line waiting for an available teller, only she was white. The white mother also had several small children close in age to the Black mother's children. The mother had her hands full trying to stay in line while her little boy wandered about, skipping, twirling, rolling on the floor, and asking questions of the bank security guard. I don't know about you, but my little one used to always he'd just go off anywhere. He didn't care. He would just do his thing, so you all might have similar experiences. The white mother did not insist that her children stand by her side. Instead, she tried to keep an eye on them and apologize to the people in line whom her children were annoying. I remember when I was a child being in a bank and other places of businesses with my mother and experiencing the same phenomenon of watching the white kids play while my mother insisted that I stay near her. Watching the repeat of this experience, I wondered how the little Black girl who stood in the bank line felt while she watched the white boy run and play in the bank. I suspect she felt a number of emotions: fear of the consequences she might receive of disobeying her mother, shame from the curious looks of her white peers, anger at not being able to move about freely. Without explicitly saying so, the Black mother sent a message to her children, and the message was, little white children can safely run and play, but you cannot, because it is not okay or safe for you. These experiences teach Black children that somehow this world does not belong to Black boys and girls, it belongs to little white children. So that is, that's part of a writing from Dr. Joy DeGruy, and she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. So I want to preface that by saying I read that because for a lot of children of color, that's the sense that they get, that the world is not safe for them to run around, to jump, to play, and to live freely. And quite honestly, as a parent myself, it really comes from a place of safety. If I let you too far out of my sight, you're not going to be safe. And the other part of that too is, this is just kind of gives some context. The other part of that too is, oftentimes children of color feel like they have to be better, smarter, stronger, more respectful than other children that don't look like them. And that presents a problem because they see other children behaving maybe differently from them, or just feeling like that child has more freedom than I do. And so that begins to creep into the fiber of their self-esteem and what they think they are or can be. And so I've raised that point primarily because I want to explain to all of you that at that age, when children are small, that's when their brains are like really pliable. We can really mold them and we can shape them. And as parents, we have a duty to shape those children so that they are God-fearing, that they are law-abiding, and that they have a really strong sense of self and self-esteem. And so it's important to do that. And so part of this talk about how do we talk to our kids about racism in our community, that's a big part of it. And so shaping our children to know that we are all incredible and we're all fearfully and wonderfully made is important. And so when you have your discussion with your children, it's going to look different based on how your family is made up. Some families are multi-ethnic. Mine absolutely is. My little sweet grandbaby, his mother is a beautiful young woman whose family hails from Mexico. So he's I'm smitten, can you tell? And so he'll be 1 tomorrow. The last time I went with you all, he was 3 months. He's will be 1 tomorrow. And so it's important that we look at how our family dynamic is set up before we engage in this conversation with our kids about race and ethnicity and violence in our community and how we perpetrate that, sometimes knowingly and unknowingly, throughout society. So first thing I would tell you is to be direct, right? Don't sugarcoat things with your kids. I would make sure it's age appropriate. You don't want to use adult words with small children because it'll go right over their heads. They're not going to get it. But you want to be direct. You want to use, terms, black person, white person, because these are things that they hear. Again, I hesitate with this word yellow, but I'll definitely consult with one of my good friends to find out later and get back to you guys on if that's appropriate or not. So Asian or Indian, Pakistani. So because when we're too vague, it leads to confusion for our kids. And so your kids. If you tell your kid one thing, that's what it is, right? So if you say the sky is blue, it's blue. You can't say, oh, it's baby blue, or it's chartreuse with hints of orange in the sky is blue, the clouds are white. That's what kids get. So they think very concretely. So it's really important to not be vague, and because that leads to confusion. The other thing I want to recommend is that you want to make sure that you normalize their emotions. Some of your kids might be really afraid right now, like they're seeing things or they're hearing things and they don't really know what to make of that. And you want to normalize that for them. And you can even let them know, hey, mommy is afraid too. Mommy doesn't like what's happening out here. And that's something that we don't do. We don't speak poorly of other people. We don't criticize other people. We don't put people down because of where they come from, what they look like. So you want to make sure that your kids can see you, because remember, we're molding little humans here. We are shaping them into who they're going to be as adults. So it's important to be able to normalize whatever strong emotions they have around that. And that could be, I'll use my son's name. He hates this, but he'll be all right. His name is David. He's number 2 of the 4 sons that we have. So if David was to come to me as a little kid and say, mommy, one of my friends, their daddy got beat up and maybe they went to jail. And I would say, you know what, David, when mommy heard about that on the news, she was so sad. And it made her want to cry because we don't know what happened in that situation. And maybe it was something that was really unfair. And so my ability to display my emotions or my feelings around violence or racism is going to help my child be able to be okay with their own feelings. So that's wildly important. If the way you approach it is going to be how your kids approach it. And some of you may even be confused. And some of you may have really strong feelings around it. I'm not sure, but some of you may have children that are multi-ethnic. Maybe some of you have adopted children that have come from different ethnic backgrounds, and you want to be able to support and love and care for that child. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you're managing your own emotions around it. And if you're upset around it, it's okay. I call it feeling your feels. It's okay to feel your feels and to normalize that for your children. And then once you do that, and you're able to then better navigate how they're feeling emotionally. I touched on already to emphasize that it's not okay. So the other thing I wanted to encourage you ladies around, those are all my notes. You know, the Lord deals with me funny. Sometimes I get a whole thing I'm supposed to say. Other times he's like, this is what you say, then I'll give you the rest as you go. And so it's really important with this conversation around implicit bias to know that we all have it. Everyone has it. It doesn't matter where you come from. It just is. We all have this framework of the world and what it's supposed to look like, or what it typically looks like for us, and what's comfortable for us. So we tend to gravitate towards what's comfortable for us, either knowingly or unknowingly. And sometimes that unconscious implicit bias causes us to react and behave in ways that when we stop and think about it, we wouldn't normally react that way. And so I want to just normalize that for you all, so that when it pops up for you, you can say, okay, I noticed that. Now what do I want to do about it? What actions do I want to take to be different with that? And I also want to go back to the notion of anti-racist. So anti-racist just means you're actively working on doing something to make change, right? And so as we're talking to our children about the times we're living in, I dare say unprecedented. We've kind of been here before, so this is not a new thing, but because we're in the middle of a pandemic, because we're in an election year, because we're in the house, everything is magnified. Your own emotions may be magnified. And so I want to encourage you to be active and encourage your kids to do active things. I have some book recommendations for you in just a moment, but I want to encourage you to be present with your kids and let them know that it is okay for them to be upset about it. It is okay for them to even be angry about it. And then once you're done being angry, actively participate in some sort of social justice. And little kids can engage in social justice, even from a distance. I've seen so many kids come up with things online, and I'm so proud to be a human and watch these babies come up with all kinds of ways to unite their friends. Some of you may or may not have seen the video where the two little kids come flying at each other from down the street because they're best friends. And one of them's a little black boy, one's a little white boy. It's just, I love that video. And all they know is that's my friend. That's the thing we want to foster in our children, is your friends can come from anywhere. Your friends don't have to look like you. Your friends can be anybody that you want them to be, as long as they're safe, right? I always stress safety. And so some of you may or may not have had kids that have experienced things at school and they come home upset. And so I have some grounding exercises for you to use with them initially to help de-escalate where they are, and then to have those deeper conversations about, well, how does that feel for you when you saw your friend getting bullied because maybe his hair doesn't look like yours, or maybe his skin is darker than yours. Tell me what emotions that makes you feel. And so as we navigate that space, the more we open up the dialogue for our kids, the safer it is for them, the more that they're better able to handle it. So one tool for being able to do what we call externalize, just get it out, is to get it on paper, right? So you can give your child paper, colored pencils, crayons, washable markers, right? Because my kids are old, so we didn't have washable markers. When my kids were coming up, you just had to pray you could get it out of the carpet if they got markers. So you want to be able to position them in a way where they have a way to be able to let that stuff out, right? So they can draw pictures, and kids can tell you so many things about how they're feeling by drawing pictures. So one thing you can do is say, hey, that sounds like that was hard for you. Can you draw mommy a picture of that and tell me what that looks like for you at school today? And just allow them to express. Some of you are familiar with kinetic sand, like that kind of wet sand, but it's not actually wet. Allow them to make and mold and shape things in the sand, and give them a space to tell you how they're feeling through a way that they already use, which is through play. Children will tell you whatever you want to know about them simply through allowing them to play. That's how they work things out. You ever had a moment with your kid where you were upset with a parent of a kid that maybe they got into it with at the playground, and then 5 minutes later they're like friends again, and you and the mom are still butting heads, but they're back playing, because that's how kids work things out, right? So letting your child work through those strong emotions through a medium that they already know how to do. We don't have to teach them how to play, they just play. Something else I wanted to make sure that I brought up was that it's okay to have that conversation. It's okay to initiate it and to say to your child, hey, there's been a lot of stuff on TV lately about people being mistreated, being hurt. Some of them even need to be with Jesus because they were hurt so bad. Can you tell mommy what you think about that? So it really is, so you notice the language that I'm using. So that's the language you would use with probably a school-age child. If some of you have older children, middle school, same type of language. Hey, buddy, I'm curious. Can you tell mom what you think about all this? This is kind of scary, huh? What do you think? What are your friends saying about it? Absolutely, positively engage them with that, because I notice with children, the more you tense up, the more they tense up. So you want to be able to initiate that conversation. And believe it or not, they may brush you off, but when the rubber meets the road, they want you to engage them. They want a soft place to land. And as moms, we're that soft place for them. And so really being able to have that conversation and say, hey, that's my timer. Sorry, to really tell them that it's okay to have this conversation with me, and I want to help you, I want to support you. I want to give you some grounding techniques, and then I know we wanted to leave some time for questions. So these are some of my favorites. The first two start 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? Anybody my age, Janet Jackson? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You remember? Remember that song? Okay. So the first one is using your 5 senses. So when you want to de-escalate your child when they're really kind of riled up and they're upset, this works across a broad range of situations, but really with this, when kids don't have the language to express what they need from you, rather, you want to give them some things to help ground them. So the first thing is 5 things you see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can touch, 1 thing you can taste. So with that last one, I always say keep, I don't know what the rules are in your house, but keep a piece of gum or a gummy bear or something like that. So they're like, oh, I haven't brushed my teeth yet, so I can't taste toothpaste. No worries, mom has something here for you. And so that's a really good grounding technique. The other one is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but with sights, things you can see. 5 colors I see. 4 shapes I see. 3 soft things I see. 2 people I see. And 1 book I see. I have just a couple of more for you here. This next one is ABC around the room. So you are literally just walking your kids through the ABCs with what they see around the room. Look around the room and name something that starts with an A, and then you go to B, and then you go to C. The next one is be a tree. So you want to teach your child to feel his or her connection to the ground by imagining that he or she is a tree. And you want to encourage them to grow their roots way down deep into the ground, because sometimes they're going to hear some things that are uncomfortable. Sometimes they're going to see some things on the playground that are uncomfortable, or on the schoolyard, and you want to make sure that they don't get knocked over. So you want to connect yourself to the ground. The last one is a power hug, and I love this one because it's something that first responders use. So essentially, you're going to ask your kid to create a statement, such as, "I'm safe in this moment," because sometimes our kids don't feel safe when they hear about these scary things on the news. And when we go to talk to them, they still may not feel safe. So you may want to ask them to create a grounding statement for themselves. And then what they're going to do is they're going to do butterfly taps and squeeze. So the butterfly taps, I hope you can see me. So you just left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. It's a really soothing sensation. So if you've ever seen your kid just kind of rock back and forth like this, or side to side, or they do the twirling, the motion is soothing. And then you give yourself a squeeze, a good old squeeze. And since we can't squeeze one another too much these days, that might be helpful for you moms to give yourself a squeeze every now and then, right? Just to hold on. There you go. I see you, Michelle, giving yourself a squeeze. Jackie, who else is squeezing? I hope all of you guys are squeezing. Susan, that's awesome. And so that's a way of grounding. These conversations are difficult, ladies, and I realize that, but they're so necessary and they're so important. I want to encourage you to engage your children. If they come to you, don't be afraid. Don't be shy. You're their first teacher. Some of them, for some of you all, you are the teacher right now. So don't shy away from those conversations. Be sure you're checking in with your kids to see how they're feeling about what's going on, because it's that unspoken thing that begins to undo all of that molding that we're doing. If your belief system is that we're all created in the image of God, then we want to stress that. That's not how we see people. Check in with your own biases, right? Like, where am I? How do I feel? If you've ever clutched your purse, if you've ever felt a presence walk up, and as a woman, I get that we kind of do this because it's a safety thing. I want you to draw on the fact that we all belong to a minority group. We are women, right? And we're not always looked at as the wonderful creative beings that we are. So remember what that's like for you when someone has downplayed who you are, or not paid you what you were worth, or not honored the fact that you're the CEO of the house, because that's I promise you that's a job, right? When you're at home and you're taking care of those babies, and you're trying to do homework with a kindergartner and a junior in high school, that's a real job. So remember what that feels like, so that you can be aware of what your own biases are. If you like, I can email you, Jackie, some other books that might help with that. But I was all over the map with this, and I thought, we're talking about kiddos. So because we're talking about kiddos, I want to give you a few books. These are great. Some of them you can get on Amazon Unlimited, like the Kindle Unlimited. So the first one is called Anti-Racist Baby Board Book. Say that fast 3 times. The author is Ibram Kendi, and the first name is spelled I-B-R-A-M as in Mary. Middle initial is X as in X-ray. Last name is spelled K as in King, E, N as in Nancy, D as in David, I. The next one is Mama, Did You Hear the News? And the author is Sonia Whitaker Gragg. First name is spelled S-A-N-Y-A. Whitaker, W-H-I-T-T-A-K-E-R. Gragg, G as in George, R-A-G-G. She's a social worker. She has a master's in social work. 2 more. One, you all may have heard of this one, Teach Your Dragon About Diversity. That's by Steve Herman. And then this last book is a really good resource because giving our kids historical perspective about how racial unrest and and inequality has kind of been pervasive throughout our society, throughout decades, right? This book is called Civil Rights Then and Now. And that one's by Christina with a K, Brooke, Brooke, Danielle, D as in David, Aniele. Really good books, really age-appropriate books, because if we don't know where we've come from historically, we're doomed to repeat it. The issue we're facing now is none of us are really going anywhere, so it's like smacking us in the face. And so I just want to encourage you. I appreciate this time. I know it probably was, you didn't know what to expect or how difficult this conversation would be, even when Jackie and I talked about it on the phone. It was, sometimes you don't know how to approach people and how to say what you want to say. And so I feel super welcome. I feel grateful to be able to have this time with you all. And I really appreciate the fact that you are taking, I'm almost getting emotional. You're taking this anti-racist step. And I appreciate that. I have 4 amazing young Black sons and a drop-dead gorgeous husband. And this conversation is so important. And 2 of my kids live in the South, in Georgia. And so it's super important to have this dialogue. So it means a lot to you, but it means a lot to me. And so I just want to thank you. Oh, I see a cutie pie. Hi, cutie Michelle. Baby in the background. Told you I'm a sucker. I'm done. If you all have questions, I'm open to answer them. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that small piece, this conversation is so big, but I hope that small bit helped.
Thank you so much, Makela. You're making me tear up too. So let me